So, welcome to Sitecore Standard Values. My name is Sultan and I'm here today with Rick Bauer, who just flew from the US to meet the lovely Jackie Baxter.
It's me.
In London.
Fanfare.
Yeah, please add that. Like the trumpets and the,
Yeah.
It's a requirement when I enter the room.
Yep. Like that. Okay.
Just like that.
All right, got it.
Just like that. How everybody knows I'm coming.
Okay. Again?
Oh no, I thought
we're doing it that way.
We're doing it that way.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah,
let's skip it.
We're still rolling.
Yes. So, Jackie.
Yes.
Thanks for taking the time to meet us.
Absolutely, anytime.
So, you're Senior Digital Strategist, DX.
Yes, comma DX. That's very important.
That's very sorry about the comma.
Yeah.
Oh.
You gotta mention the comma.
Okay.
Bad grammar.
Yeah.
Bad grammar. Oh, I was bad at it. So you moved from the US to London.
I did.
Yeah. So how's London?
It's great. Yeah, no, I really do. I love it here. I remember when I moved here, one of the things that they were really insistent on was that I needed a buddy in the London office to help me with the cultural differences. I have not found there to be many cultural differences, except that I do not and still will not call a trash can a bin. That is something.
You're holding firm on that one.
Holding firm on that one because my colleagues in the London office will mock me about that until I am not here anymore. You know, however long that is, if it's 3 years, if it's 5 years. My father will mock me about that until the day he dies. That will be the last thing he says to me on his deathbed would be, "It's not a bin."
It's not a bin.
So I have chosen the path of teasing that is the shortest.
Okay.
That's smart.
Yeah. I think so. As a life choice, I feel good about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. As the current American in the room, I will say I couldn't not do an Instagram of my walk to work today, taking a photo of Tower Bridge, and not something you get to do too often. So we are in the Sitecore London office overlooking St. Catherine's Docks, which is just a bunch of lovely boats. So anyway.
But on the other side of the building is the Tower of London.
It is.
Tower Bridge, which I'm still not over. I've been here a little over a year.
And nothing bad ever happened there.
No, it's a pretty chill place. Yeah. All in all.
Yeah.
No bad vibes.
No bad vibes. Just some crows. Just some crows.
Yeah, just some ravens and a really nice, I think it's nice. A lot of people don't think it's nice, but like a really oddly placed memorial sculpture to 13 of the people who were beheaded in the Tower of London. But it's like the 13 people who you've heard of. It's like the 13 more of the nobles and the royals who were beheaded there. So you walk by it and you're like, I feel like there were more than that.
Yes. But interesting that they landed on 13 too. So.
I know. And it might be 12. It might be 12, it might be 14. It's somewhere in that range. 13 would be funnier, which is probably why I settled on it.
I like it. Let's go with that.
Let's go with that.
Yeah, so they built a tower to hang people.
Yeah.
Only 13 people.
Yeah. Only 13.
That's why the whole castle, just for those 13 people.
Mm-hmm. That must have been important.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Important to them at the time, certainly.
Yeah. So you're also someone very important as a senior digital strategist, DX.
Thank you.
So what's your role and what are you doing?
So I am primarily, the DX team is primarily responsible for Sitecore's digital properties. So that is mostly Sitecore.com, but we also have a variety of other websites that sort of fall under that umbrella. So the fun thing for me is that I actually get to do now for Sitecore what I've been helping Sitecore clients do for years, which is integrate our products into their stack, figuring out in what circumstances and what use cases those products are going to be the most helpful, and making those decisions about how we as Sitecore move toward a composable architecture. So that's something that we're able to tell our clients now and able to tell anyone who might be interested in going on that composable journey, is Sitecore is actually doing that right now ourselves. We're currently on, I believe it's XP10, maybe 10.1, but with the plan is to move to 10.2, and with the idea that we will eventually be moving to the cloud, integrating more and more of our products, which gives us a really nice conversational point and a really nice conversation to have with a lot of our clients of, no, we do understand
Yeah.
what you're going through because we're going through it as well.
And that's so I've been speaking on the sim tour, and there's a presentation that shows off the drinking our own champagne, as I understand it, as I recall. And I think that's really, a great way to start to say, look, we're going to show you that even with composable and XP, there's a way, the path forward. Is that going to be, can you talk a little bit about that and maybe kind of the future of that, how much that's going to continue to expand and what that's going to look like on the site, on Sitecore.com?
Yeah, absolutely. I think so we do have a roadmap, as any good tech company, any good brand does. We do have a roadmap for the upgrades and for the integration. As you mentioned, the first step in that process was integrating Sitecore Personalize. The reason that we chose Personalize as opposed to CDP and going straight to CDP was because, as I mentioned, we are on Sitecore XP.
XP, yep.
And XP, I'm very fond of XP. I started using XP. That's been sort of the bread and butter of Sitecore Strategists since I started working on Sitecore, which was in 2015.
I feel like there should be some strategy MVP handshake or something like that.
Yeah, we should just have like it's me. But I am very fond of XP, and I think XP has still a lot to offer, especially brands in certain industries. I think anyone who's still using XP has a lot to be proud of. I think it has a lot of utility. I also acknowledge that, especially when it comes to personalization, and Rick, I know you and I have been Sitecore Strategy MVPs together. You've also worked on XP for a long time. There are things that XP was never designed to do.
Like cross-page personalization.
Correct, as like a brilliant example, and also cross-session personalization to some extent.
Right.
There were always ways that we found of doing it. There were things that you could set up, and you could almost get there.
Duct tape, rubber bands.
Yeah,
we'd get it there.
We'd get it there. But that's something that I know I heard from. If it wasn't every Sitecore client I ever worked with, it was only because some of them didn't know to ask the question. But when are you going to be able to do cross-session personalization?
Yep.
And now we can. Yeah. And that's incredibly valuable, especially as you're moving toward a composable MarTech structure. There's a lot of programs and a lot of technologies that provide you a lot of data that your customers are willingly, hopefully, giving you. Yep. Because of the experience that you're providing. So if they see the value exchange of, well, if I provide you my data, then I get a better experience, then pretty often they're willing to hit that accept all button.
And beyond cross-session, we're talking cross-device, cross-channel, just omni-channel, truly omni-channel personalization.
Truly omni-channel personalization. Yeah. And so that you don't have to ask more than once. Once you've got that information, that you can continue to build that profile and continue to provide that better experience. Yeah. And so I actually was, I'll freely admit, a little bit concerned when we were going to implement Personalize on Sitecore.com, and I wasn't the only one, because a lot of us were sitting there going, well, what can we do with it that we haven't already done with XP or that we aren't able to do with XP? But what I found is it's not actually about what you can and can't do, it's about what's best for the use case and what's best for the customer. So we're starting to roll out Personalize in a way that creates an experience that, number one, does move cross-session, so that when customers come back, we can continue to offer them those pieces of content and sort of draw them down the customer journey paths that we think are the most relevant to them. But also with the styling that we've done and with the components that we have available in Personalize, it really does integrate just so smoothly with our brand. It isn't intrusive. We're able to say, I don't want it on this page because that's going to be too chaotic. I don't want it on this page because that's going to pull their focus in a way I don't want it to go, you can do that with XP as well. So I think it really does just come down to what's best for your customer, what's best for your brand, and what direction you're moving in as you future-proof your company.
Right. Sorry, I'm kind of monopolizing here.
Go ahead.
Because this fascinates, because I've had this discussion recently. I feel like I'm going to flip it around now, because with Personalized, it was so based, the acquisition came from a very travel-heavy focus with the pop-ups and everything like that. Personalizing a component like any XP, based marketer has got used to doing seems to be like something that requires a little development. And maybe I'm wrong on this and I'm looking for correction, but what I, I'm just wondering, because if I'm not mistaken, on the drinking our own champagne, that is a personalized component. And it's just it's change, and I'll form this more of a question. Is this more just kind of changing our way of thinking that, look, you can do personalization, whereas instead of like having a taxonomy that's available to a marketer to quickly set up, there needs to be a little JSON script written, some front end development work. But then once you have that, you are set to then apply rules. Has that been your experience, or is there some tweaking to that thinking?
There's some tweaking to that thinking. Okay. And I'll be 100% honest, because we have our own dev team.
Yep.
I have not gotten my hands on the sort of like how it's set up.
I never expect a strategist to code.
But like, I would like to, at least not to code, but to get into like the decision engine part of it and to figure out, because actually that's my bigger concern. Because I see the sort of heavy lifting for component design is basically the same in XP and personalized in CDP as far as I can tell, which is you need someone to style you a library of components so that you can say, I want this and I want this, and like the marketer can change the text or the strategist can change the text. We can talk about the placement. One of the things that the DX team has really done well at, and which I really appreciate, specifically in XP, but we're carrying that thinking through to personalize, is when we think about designing a component, it's like, okay, I want there to be all these different colors. I want there to be a variety of places. Like, I want the components to have like image right, image left, image center. So we're trying to think ahead to what you might need. And with that,
almost SXA variant like.
Correct. Yeah. And that's how I think of it. Yes. It's like, I want to make sure, because that was one of my favorite things about SXA. And one of the things that I will hold on to when people are like, I didn't like SXA. It's like, that's because you never tried to build a page as a marketer when the variants were really handy, when you could just do the drop down and be like, I have now changed the styling. I don't need someone else to do that for me. And so that's what we're sort of carrying forward into the personalized journey as well. The decision engine is the part that and especially with CDP, I think slightly less so with personalize, but it's still the same functionality of like, it's the next best action. It's how do you define that? How do you set that up? And because I work with a really wonderful dev team at the moment, I'm like, I think it should do this. And I design the customer journey and I do like the wireframe. And I say, what do you think? And they say, we think that's great. And they come back 3 or 4 days later and they're like, it's done. Is this what you wanted to have happen? So I'm not sure as yet what the sort of options are for a marketer to go in and do that themselves. I presume that it is similar to many other platforms where it's like anybody can do this if they have the time and the interest and the ability to sit down and figure out how to do it. And the more times you do it, the more intuitive it becomes.
Certainly setting up the rules. And that's the other thing I'm seeing is it's not so much of a stack where it doesn't have to, it's not dependent on the order so much as it's just dependent on the complexities of the rules and such. So
that's what I've been able to determine as well.
And all of that personalization leads to 20% increase in conversions. I'm throwing that in because we're on a value consulting podcast.
It's true. But I think it's good to say that because it's very easy for especially people like me who are very into the like, look at this cool thing. It's like, it does actually have a measurable impact on your audience.
Apply your conversions to your dollars and add 20%. Is that worth investing in it?
Yeah.
Probably.
The answer is probably yes. And that's especially important when you think about the different experiences you can provide with, especially if you're using XP as so many of our customers are, but sort of thinking forward to a future where they might want to consider CDP and they might want to integrate those and they might be considering a move to XM Cloud. I think personalize is a really nice, lighter weight option so that you can get an idea of what that's going to require. I also really like that it's a standalone product, and so it's much less likely to get lost in the technical shuffle, which is what happened with personalization. I would say 9 times out of 10 with XP.
So many times, Yeah,
just gets kicked to the mythical phase 2.
Yep. And that I do feel like what you just mentioned there is kind of that a good roadmap for someone that's utilizing XP, utilizing XDB in marketing, maybe utilizing SXA, and I'll just throw out Sitecore Experience Accelerator, kind of we're using acronyms before. But XP, add personalize, you can even run both together.
And we do. I am, and actually, right now.
And then start to move from XP to XM Cloud add in, you could still get by with personalized, but add in CDP for really robust data management and capturing that data omni-channel. So and now you're composable.
Yep.
So takes time, but worth it. And I think it's just a path forward. So.
And something that when having those sort of clear steps in mind, I think also helps brands visualize how they're going to do it. So it does seem like a big leap to go from you're on XP right now, which is a very solid, very robust product and is probably doing exactly what you need it to do.
Yep.
And you're being told that in the next, I'm just going to make up some numbers, like in the next 2-3 years, you're going to want to move to XM Cloud and CDP. And those two things are miles apart. And it seems like a huge investment. And I'm not going to tell anybody that it's not. But by adding personalize in now, you're essentially building a functionality bridge between those two things.
Yeah.
So you can start getting used to it. And all the work that you do on personalize, at least as far as I'm aware, you can take with you to a CDP platform.
Yes.
So once you've done all the styling, once you've done all that component design, that work is not lost.
No.
You can take it with you to CDP and continue to use it.
And then you start seeing quicker dev turns on that stuff. And you alluded to this before, but anyone that says, well, okay, so now with personalized, if I need a front end developer to help me with any kind of, personalization, I'll throw out a challenge to anyone that's been in the XP world. How many times have you done it with just without having a dev cycle in there? I mean, there's almost always something, because I've never, it's not too often I walked into a room of marketers and they said, I just want to do GeoIP personalization and that's it, and change a component. No, it's always like, ooh, personalization. How about if they do X and Z and sometimes Y and 7, 8, 9, and that's why 6 was scared of 7, and I just threw in a dad joke. So anyway.
I mean, but you're right. I think that's the sort of like, it's good. One of my favorite phrases was always like, it's good to want things. And I do think it's good to, obviously, it's very good to be ambitious. It's very good as a marketing team to want to take advantage. Because we saw the opposite far too often, which is people saying, well, we looked at it for, a month and a half. And we couldn't get our minds wrapped around it, and nobody really understood it, and we couldn't figure out how to do it, and so we're just not doing it anymore. So I would always rather have a team that's super excited and really jazzed about the technology and wants to boil the ocean immediately. But you just we need to reel it in, keep that enthusiasm and keep that vision for where you'd like to be.
Yes.
Now we need to start talking in practicalities about how we're going to get you there, because you want to be in Cairo, and right now you're in the middle of the Atlantic. So there's a lot of miles between you and your destination. We have to talk about how we're going to get you there, and about the reality that it's going to take you a long time. And it also depends a lot, again, on how many resources you have to commit to it, which I think that's a conversation, again, that's easier to have in a composable environment, because you are talking, generally speaking, in my own personal experience, you're talking about...
Disclaimer.
Yeah, major disclaimer. But you are talking about a product, and I know we were talking a lot about personalized, but the thing about personalized that's so useful, an example, is personalized does this thing. It does it very well. It does only this thing. It is not your CMS and your personalization engine and your data warehouse and email and all the things. So you're able to focus. It's this is what it's going to cost you for the platform itself. This is the amount of time and resources that we think it's going to take for you to actually get it up and running. And this is the amount of time and resources that we think it's going to involve to continue to operate it. You can have that conversation about just your email platform, about just your personalization engine, about just your data warehouse, about just your sales platform.
It would be fascinating to capture some of those metrics from our team as far as knowing what does it take in people, for a site our size, and be able to start to share those out as well.
Yeah, which I hope to be able to be, one of the problems, and it's not a problem, it's a blessing for us. We have a team, a very robust team that comprises, we've got marketers, we've got strategists, we've got developers. We're all working on one site. We've got, I think, a 15-ish person team
Okay.
But what you're saying there is a governance lesson.
It is.
And I know that is something
Yeah.
that was not done happenstance. This was something that was planned, is let's roll in a set of developers that are dedicated to marketing. Let's roll in governance and make sure that we have a complete organization that can basically be self-sufficient.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And is that the model to use then? To have, how do you see that?
I think so. I think I'm trying to think of like the nicest possible way to say this. I think a lot of times the website gets deprioritized in a way that I think is very dangerous for the long-term health of an organization. Your website is your front door.
Your front door, yeah.
It's your welcome mat. And that's actually just your homepage. Everything else is your house. Like when you invite someone in, this is all of my stuff and we're very proud of it. And it's a house and it's also a store because ideally you want to be showcasing the things that you have that other people would want to buy. And I think it's very easy and the way that I see this happening, I would be interested to see if Rick has also had this experience, but you get it if you're lucky. You get your website to a really cool place. Like it's styled well, it's on brand, it's on message, you're getting really good feedback from your customers. And everybody goes, okay, great, we're done, on to the next thing. It's like, no.
Yeah.
Like we don't just set it and forget it. Like we need to be continually optimizing it. We need to be continually integrating new technologies.
Look at the technology, right?
Yeah.
Yep. That was a comment I always said at the start of any engagement with the customer was, this is not a start and finish. This is a journey. You or somebody after you will continue on with this, and it doesn't stop. So don't think you're just going to finish it up from a time, a planning, and even a financial. To be bluntly honest, it's like anything. I mean, but we do this with our cars. We do this with all sorts of things. We keep improving and renewing, et cetera, just to make sure that we have something safe, reliable, and productive. So, yeah.
And that's easier to do when you have a team of people who can support the website by themselves.
Yeah.
Like they don't need to, because the dev help is what I always ran into, and like the website, for better or for worse, and often I think this is the correct place for it, especially in smaller organizations, ends up with the marketing department. But the marketing department doesn't have any technological resources. They don't have a dev team that is dedicated to them. So each cycle of improvement and optimization takes months longer than it should, because you either have to outsource that entirely, go through an agency or go through a partner, or you have to utilize, if you do have internal resources, obviously the time budgets of those people is often already spoken for. Yeah. That was when I worked for an agency. That's what I ran into a lot was, those people are doing billable work. So the amount of time they have to dedicate to your website is much more limited. Yeah. So having, it really is, I think, just about investing in the future of your business to say, we're going to have a web team and it's going to comprise, we're going to have a strategist, we're going to have a couple of marketers, we're going to have a couple of developers, and they're going to be responsible for the website for at least 50% of their time. And then I know it's not, especially with smaller organizations, it may not be practical for them to give 100% of their time to the website, even though ideally that's what should happen. Yeah. But even if you had a team who 50% of their work time was dedicated to your website, you're still going to be able to innovate at a much more rapid pace than people have to beg, borrow, and steal.
That is something worth striving for, even that halftime. But with having the resources in-house, we'll call it, in that circle, then you touched on like the composable tools being a little more nimble. Yeah. You're going to accelerate those turns. And, we've had, people getting down to like single day, like we don't even need to worry about like a month or a week or whatever. It's just like, let's get this done now. So that's going to be that, and that is a value of it. We're being able to accelerate that whatever that may be it personalization, testing, commerce, all of those, the ability to kind of improve and quickly make changes is always going to, nimble is good.
Nimble is good, absolutely. And I think it matches with the workflows and the sort of development pace of most companies these days. If you describe an agile workflow to most companies, that is something they not only understand, but often have integrated at least in some capacity. And explaining that, it's always good if you can attach dollar savings to it, that's a little harder to quantify because, of course, each company is different and how much time and how and so many factors. But my almost universal expectation is that it is going to save you money in the long run to have an internal team dedicated to your web properties.
Yeah.
Are the developers on the team more front-end developer, or would you say that they're more, or they're kind of traditional, I'm going to air quote, traditional .NET, Sitecore.NET?
I think, well, we have Derek Hunziker, who is like 7 back-end developers in one person.
Okay.
He's got so many skills. It's mind-boggling. I think we are a little more heavily weighted toward front end at this point in time, and I would expect to sort of see that trend continue.
Yep.
But we do have, because again, we are still on XP, which does require the sort of .NET traditional
I don't think the .NET is going anywhere, and thanks for walking down the path of that leading question of mine. But where I was, I do think that
I gotcha.
I knew you would. I do think that a Fed is also a beautiful combination of that left and right brain, where they actually are more interested in the marketing piece than the folks that are doing API. Nothing. It's a skill, and it is a brain that I can't fathom having. But they're usually not the creative brain at all. Feds usually tend to kind of bridge the gap a little bit, and so having them on your team, I would imagine also there's a lot less trying to justify things in meetings. It's just like, oh yeah, okay, I understand what you're trying to do, because they're used to wireframes and and code. So it's just a nice marriage.
It is, absolutely. And because we have sort of our own in-house design team as well, that means that the communication path really is very open between the different members of our team. We have weekly stand-ups where everybody will come together and say, well, here's what I'm thinking. And it just makes things move so much more smoothly when you have everybody, at least one person in each meeting, who can say, that's not going to work because reality is a thing that we must adhere to. So that's not going to work because you actually can't create that in CSS, is something I've heard a couple of times before we invested a lot of time and resources in styling something that isn't going to work, which is so helpful, because being able to say, here's what we came up with, and have somebody say, so that's not going to work. It's like, okay, no problem. What about this would work? Is there anything we can change that would make this workable? And if the answer is no, which it rarely is, often the front-end developers will say, well, actually, I think if you just didn't want like this part, we could probably make it work. It's like, great. Then we can take that away and they'll give it a try. I think only once have I heard them say like, that's not possible. And they were able to say very clearly why it wasn't possible. And once they explained, I was like, I get that.
And that's why we don't have a Starfield background on our website.
Yeah. Correct.
But that's very impressive, the way you're working, because it means that you are not wasting time generating frustrations. Like, I had this fantastic idea. We'll ask the guy, sending an email. It takes months. Yeah.
And 4 months later, you find out that it's not going to work because reasons, and often good reasons.
Sure. But reasons would have been nice to know yesterday.
Right. It's much better to know that 2 days after you've come up with a concept. And we also have an advantage in that most of our team has been working with Sitecore for a while, and
I'm sure there's of our many massive fan base that is listening to this or watching on YouTube, they're probably saying, well, that's nice and easy for you, Sitecore. But I'll still argue back. You can create a team that knows this. It might take you a little time to create it, but it could be a team of 5 people. That could be a Tiger team that can work quickly and nimbly and be able to work and do this for your organization. Even if it means that there is a managing member of one certain team that pushes out to a larger team, but they're in charge of that and pushing it through. There's still ways of achieving this.
Absolutely. And I think that's a lot of people hear, internal teams, Sitecore specialty, and that sort of shuts them down because there just aren't a lot of those people. But as we move, again, more to this composable structure, I think we will find less and less that specific Sitecore experience is necessary because so much of this is becoming like industry standard functionality.
Yeah.
And so, you know, moving between like WordPress and Sitecore is a big mental, it requires a pretty big mental shift to go from WordPress to Sitecore. I don't think, I mean, and again, my own limited experience, moving from between CDPs, you're going to see a lot of very similar functionalities.
Right.
So, you know, my sort of prediction would be that those roles are not actually as hard to fill as you might think, especially when you start looking at, as you said, how few people truly you need if you're going to build a very successful, even Tiger team.
And how hard it is to find a Sitecore certified .NET developer. I mean, that's not an easy.
It's not an easy get. Yeah.
So, yeah. And then you just touched on WordPress a little bit. So I was wondering this myself, are we, from a composable standpoint, are we using then Content Hub to drive assets and or more of the CMP side, like running text-based content or?
That's the plan.
Okay.
Okay. The way that we're using it now is not the way that we hope to use it in the future.
I'm guessing there's a repository of assets that then get uploaded into the media library.
Yeah.
Okay.
At the moment. And that actually has more to do with, and it's a culture thing more than a technology thing. Because in order to shift from the way you've been doing it to the new way of doing it, you have to get buy-in from a much wider portion of the organization than you might think. And if you run into even one technical hiccup, then you've lost half of the people because they're like, I don't have time to deal with this. I need it to be done. I need it to be done right now. I'm just going to go back to doing it the way I know how to do it.
Building a data model takes time.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's a big part of asset management. So
right. So, I mean, when I joined the DX team, that was one of my first questions. And the answer I got back is the same as my answer would be now, which is that is definitely one of our goals.
Okay.
The way that the functionality is set up, especially the workflows that you have available in CMP, I'm a really big fan of.
They're wonderful.
They're very nice. But again, it requires that, and we're in the process of making that culture shift.
Right.
But I'll be very interested to see how Content Hub interacts with like XM Cloud and what those crossovers would be, because it would not surprise me very much if a lot of our customers find themselves in the same position of, well, that would be great, but as long as we're on XP, we actually have a system that works fine for us.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm definitely a big proponent of if it's not broken, don't fix it. Like if it works for you, truly works for you, the way you have it set up, great.
That's fair. Yeah.
We're invested in your success. Whatever success looks like to you, that's what it looks like to us.
Yeah. And I love that story about about your team and our website. We're with this. We're doing this with you. We're, almost the very rare admission by, any sort of organization that like, look, this is an evolution for us as well, and we're going to do this with you. We're on it, but we're definitely going to, make sure that we're trying this out. And again, I'll reuse the phrase, but drinking our own champagne. So,
I mean, and my favorite thing about it is I would infinitely rather that those technological hurdles happen to me than that they happen to a customer.
Yes.
Not only do I have, essentially the entirety of the Sitecore organization that I can email and say, so fun story. This was working yesterday and it's not working today and none of us know why. This is the error we're getting. What you got? Having the ability to figure out what those hurdles might look like for our customers and being able to have the answers when they come back.
Yes.
Like one of the things I learned, which I think is fascinating, is that with Personalize, if you're going to do like between session personalization, a session is 40 minutes. It doesn't close the session for 40 minutes. So
let me understand. So after somebody closes out, there's a 40-minute wait period. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like, which is really good information to have if you're talking to a client about doing what they're probably going to want to do, which is
targeting.
Test it.
Test it. It's like, okay, well, if you want to test it, you need to force close.
Yeah.
You just need to force close the session, and here's the code to do it, so that you can test it and make sure that it's working, and also know that like if your customer comes and does the thing, does thing A, and then immediately goes and does thing B, they're not going to see what you want them to see on thing B, which brings up why XP personalization and integrating XP personalization, which would be active immediately, creates a really good story for like, well, what's the most important thing about that tactic? Is it most important that they see it right away, in which case we might need to pursue these things? Or is it most important that this journey happen in this, slightly more modular and funky way where they get this very branded thing? Like what's most important and what tactic can we pursue that's going to get you the result you're looking for most efficiently?
Yeah.
I mean, I could talk about this kind of stuff with you for days. So
thinking we're in trouble because there's a time limit on this.
we have our standard question, which I'll defer to Sultan, but since we are literally, our 20-minute podcast is almost twice as long, and I have no apologies to anyone listening. But
and I mean, you've been talking so much about champagne that you want to drink some.
Yeah. I mean, it's England. You can get a drink at any time of the day or night.
Is that just an England thing? Because I don't know.
No, but it's definitely a culturally English thing.
Yes.
In a way that it is not a culturally
I am waiting
thing.
for the afternoon gin and tonic, but I feel like I'm here on the wrong day.
Oh, yeah, that's only on Thursdays.
Oh, all right.
But we'll see what we can do.
All right.
Yeah, you need to come back another time.
Yeah.
So our podcast is called Standard Values.
Okay.
So what is your standard value?
Personally or professionally?
Either. We tend to lean personally, like what is a standard value, but we've had both. So,
okay.
And it can be more than one.
I think my my sort of baseline for my life is don't be a jerk. It's actually really easy to not be a jerk in almost every situation. It's really simple to just not be that person.
What's that word? Empathy?
Yeah, empathy. A little bit of, putting yourself in the other person's shoes, but even that's not necessary. You don't need to go that far.
Right.
Yeah.
I know it's been an incredibly stressful 2 years for everyone. Everyone has lived life on like an 11.5 out of 10 for 2 years.
Yes.
And I mean, I got that piece of advice years and years ago. I think I was a freshman in college when someone said that his sort of life motto was "Don't be a jackass," and I was like, actually, yeah, like that's a really good way to just move through the world. As don't be that person. Don't be the person that the meme gets made about.
I think you will find that for most successful people will not go into the politics industry, but yes.
Yeah. I mean, I know that there are obviously, especially in a world where I'm still very interested in social media and still very engaged in social media, and I find social media to be equal parts fascinating and terrifying.
Your TikTok sea chanties down?
No, I sure don't.
Okay.
I mean, I watch them, but I will never have a TikTok. TikTok's scary, kids. Get that off your phone. Not good from a data collection perspective. They're all scary, but like TikTok was designed to be scary, so be afraid of TikTok.
Be careful with that.
Be careful with that, kids. And wear sunscreen. But
And eat your vegetables.
And eat your vegetables, yeah. It's good, just good tips. But I know that with
being nice, you're being kind, right
being
there.
kind, being friendly. But I do think, I remember somebody asking once, they were like, why don't, because I have a very specific curated personality on each of my social media feeds. And they were like, well, what's your sort of social media philosophy? And I was like, I never post anything that I would be ashamed for my grandmother or Mr. Rogers to see. Like, I don't ever want to put anything out there that I can hear my grandmother's voice sometimes going like, you should probably think about that. Like, to just sort of live your life in that way as well, of like, live your life so that Mr. Rogers would be proud of you. Don't be a jerk.
Be a neighbor.
Be a neighbor. Be a helper.
Yeah.
And you don't even have to go that far. Just like, don't be that guy. Don't be the person who makes the whole tube slow down because your arm got caught in the door because you were rushing to make the train. Like,
yes.
Don't be that. Don't be that person. Don't be a jerk.
Okay.
It's a much longer answer than you were looking for, I think.
It's a beautiful answer.
Probably
you.
the most original one we had so
Oh.
far.
I love it. Thank you, Jackie, for taking the time, spending a little extra time with us for Sitecore Standard Values. You're very kind.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Yes. And so everyone, thanks for listening, for watching, and don't be jerks.